Hello, everybody. Just doing a mic check. Mic looks okay. Let me know if it's okay. Still haven't completely resolved my preamp situation. But I also seem to have questionable internet connection. So we're gonna have to monitor this as we go along and hope that this doesn't become too much of an issue. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling a bit pessimistic about this. Don't know what's going on with my machine. Everything's just moving really slow and the internet's really, really shocking. Really shocking. I don't know what's going on. Let me try my other card. My other Wi-Fi card. Let's connect there. And let's turn this card off. Okay, sorry about that. That was a bit of a fail there. Oh, dearie me. However, I appear to be up. Sorry about that, guys. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? All right. When was the last time you restarted your router? When was the last time I restarted my machine? I do need to do some. I really need to do some serious housekeeping. I do. It's just time, man. It's just time. It's just time. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining me. This isn't going to be a long stream today, but I thought actually I made mention of this yesterday to those of you who were on the live stream yesterday. I talked about the moving of Abu Simbel, or at least the movement of the Temple of Ramesses at Abu Simbel. And I just thought it would be a really interesting watch back. It's one of the most fascinating films I've watched regarding this era. I mean, someone said straight there, I doubt they could brought what was inside the mountain. This is why you need to watch this. You're gonna be. This is this is gonna knock your socks off, because I had 1,000,001 conspiracy theories about the moving of the Ramesses temple at Abu Simbel. I had 1,000,001 conspiracy theories about it. It just seemed the most bizarre and impossible feat that I just couldn't get my head around its plausibility. Watch this film. Watch this film. It will knock you off your chair. So thank you for making that comment, and hello to everyone who's here. But you know, put your seatbelt on, sit back. I'm about to take you on a bit of a ride here. So if you haven't watched this film, yeah, prepare to have your mind blown, to say the least. Good evening, everyone. Time is 8:30 or 8:35 over here in the UK. My hope is for this stream not to go on for much longer than an hour. So thank you, those of you who have joined me on time. Let's start off with a bit of housekeeping before we dive into the actual video at hand. So let's start off with a bit of housekeeping. So first of all, in fact, looking at this image on the screen, I don't know how many of you can see it clearly, but remember I said yesterday, I was talking about the fact that I use henna and indigo. And oh God, look at this internet, it's awful. I was talking about the texture of grey hairs. So you can see this image of me. If you look at my chin over here, you can see some red hairs. That's where the henna's showing through. and you can see some straight white hairs. Remember I was talking about how the texture of gray hair is wiry, it's very different, and they really stand out. So I just realized this little thumbnail that I did a few weeks ago is a good illustration of what I was trying to yeah, my internet well, it just went down like I was presuming it was going to. I've gone out to the other room, I've moved the box, and I'm going to hope for the best. This is such a pain. Sometimes it just gets like this. I wish the internet in this house has always been pretty ropey. I wish it wouldn't do this often. I hope I'm back now for you guys. I don't know if I am or if I'm not. It says that I'm back. It says I got 49. I'm just going to keep talking in the hope that you guys are back, but now also have to appreciate the fact that this has created some kind of a delay. Yeah, everyday streamer. That's another thing. You know, being an everyday streamer does does have its downsides, and this is probably one of them. You know, so yeah. Sorry, guys. I hope you can be patient with me. So where were we? We were at housekeeping. Okay, so let's get through a few housekeeping things. So the first thing is you've seen the thumbnail that I had on the screen, which I'm gonna have to load back up again. But the thumbnail at very least shows, or at least illustrates, the point that I was making yesterday regarding not only henna and indigo use in Africa, but also the texture of grey hair, and provides a perfect explanation for why things appear the way they appear. So yeah, there's that. So I'm just pulling up getting everything prepared in the back. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the article. Pause that. The other thing that I wanted to share, let me get my screen on, is share screen. Thank you. The other thing that I want to share with you guys is the article that I shared with you via a post, and I think I mentioned it yesterday. There is a bigger piece of work being done around this investigation. Essentially, it's called Evaluating Ancient DNA Interpretation in Africa. And it's not really a paper, it's more of an article than anything, but it's a very brief paper that I drafted, just collating the many issues that are causing basically a compounding of Eurocentric effects when it comes to DNA studies, and the many steps of analysis that genetic information, genetic data goes through, results in an output that's so heavily weighted towards Eurocentrism. It's no surprise. In fact, you kind of know what they're trying to achieve, or what they're expecting to get out before they even enter. And I had trouble, or at least I wouldn't say trouble, I've had trouble understanding what was going wrong. And I think that's a bit clearer to me now, where I think I understand what's going wrong now. And now my big challenge is to be able to articulate that to you guys. Okay, so I want to be able to articulate these problems and these issues, and I think this is a good first step. So if you want to know my perspective on the latest DNA study, people are like, well, what do you think of this DNA study that's just come out? Let me refer you to this article. This article is my brain dump on what the exact issues are. My view hasn't changed from years ago, well, at least over a year ago, when I did that analysis of Cater's paper, interpreting Cater and Kittle's paper, interpreting African genetic diversity. I haven't changed my perspective on that. But this paper, I think I'm proud of it in terms of as a first attempt to tackle the subject. And my next attempt, which will be out soon, I think I can put it together quite soon. My next attempt is going to be even stronger and even more well supported. So let me just pop that in the chat so that you guys can, at your own leisure, have a read of that article. I want you to. Don't do it right now. We're having a live stream. What next? Next, I wanted to just quickly bring you back to this that I shared with you the other day. I still have this goal in mind, and I'm still well off it. So I need you guys as a community to engage in my pre-sale. 1,000 backers, 1,000 books. That's my commitment. If I can get 1,000 people to back this project, I will be giving away 1,000 books to schools and institutions, non-profits globally. And I'll take any recommendations from people as much as possible. And I'll be, this will be a monumental achievement. And if I can't get the 1,000 backers, I'll still be giving away hauls of books along the way, starting with 20 books being donated just for reaching my goal, and then several other milestones that include other book giveaways. So if on top of wanting to read my book and support the channel, you also want to move us towards the possibility of a monumental 1,000 book giveaway, then share it. Don't just have it. Don't just. And if you've, by the way, if you've donated and you, or such as say donated, if you've invested in, purchasing or backed the project in terms of purchasing a book for yourself, share it as well, please. Let's get it out there as much as possible. So there you go. That's the the 1,000 book giveaway. That's just, you can just find that from the homepage of the tkmedu.com website. And here's the project itself. So we're just over 50% of the way there. Okay. And got 141 backers. So we're 14% of the way to our 1,000 book giveaway. So we've got a lot to go, but I still think there's loads of people out there. Remember, it doesn't matter how much they back. They can back a tiny amount. They can back a large amount. It doesn't matter how much they back. My commitment is if we hit that 1,000 backers, I will find a way of getting those 1,000 books ready for schools and institutions. So, yeah. Someone said, you're doing this full time now? No, is my answer. But I will be, God willing, if we can hit some targets and goals. Because that's what I prefer to be doing. Absolutely. Now, that out of the way, housekeeping out of the way, let's get into this film. Okay. Who's let me know. Has anyone seen this film? I put the name of it's on the screen now. So it's the UNESCO Archives Film Collection, The World Saves Abu Simbel. That in itself, that title is so ironic. The World Saves Abu Simbel. It makes me want to, oh, my blood is boiling. The world destroyed Abu Simbel. Okay? The world, I cannot stress this enough. Eurocentrism, the modern Arab centrics who have the nerve and the temerity to embrace Pharaonism and call themselves the auntie and uncle, flooded more antiquities, documented by the way, because it's probably happened in other areas, but more documented antiquities than this world has ever seen in a single area, in the most deliberate destruction of African civilization that has ever taken place in history. And they have the nerve to call this art, this video, "The World Saves Abu Simbel." Yeah, my blood is boiling. My blood is damn. Oh man, yeah, absolutely vile what they did, and that's why I called my video "The When Invaders Moved a Mountain," because these people were invaders. You're going to see them paint themselves as saviors, and oh yeah, we have to do this for the heritage of world history. You didn't have to flood it. You didn't have to flood it. Oh, Egypt, Cairo needed electricity, hydroelectric, but you didn't need to flood it. It was the oldest civilization in the world, and you dumped it underwater to give friggin' Egypt, modern Egypt, give the Arabs electricity, the Arab state of Egypt electricity, and then you're gonna turn around and act like you're the saviors. This is what they. Sorry, my blood is boiling right now. I cannot stress it enough. My blood is literally boiling. But anyway, that's enough of a preamble. Let's get into it. We're preambling for 17 minutes. Let's start the video. So just a little bit of a introduction. This is going to be a video that shows you and details, and it is absolutely fascinating, by the way. Your jaw's got to drop when you see how they did this. Okay, you're going to see how they moved literally a mountain from one location to the other. So, you know, strap yourself in. This is going to be one hell of a ride. So enjoy. I'm not sure how much I'm going to intercede in this video. I think this is going to be largely a playback. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. I'll try and keep my eyes on the comments as we're doing this as well. Okay. All right. I'm going to get started. I don't know if I'm going to get copyright struck for this by UNESCO, but what the heck? Let's do it. Let's do it full screen.
For many centuries, the rock-cut temples of Abu Simbel lay abandoned at the edge of the Nubian desert. The great temple, long buried beneath the sand, was not discovered again until the year 1813 by the Swiss Orientalist Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. The temples are located on the bank of the Nile, not far from the Sudanese frontier. The smaller one is dedicated to the goddess Hathor, and its facade is adorned with figures over 30 feet high, portraying the pharaoh Ramesses II and his wife Nefertari. The temples were carved out of the rock in about 1260 before Christ by this famous king of the 19th dynasty in the latter period of Egypt's long golden age. Ramesses is also portrayed 4 times in front of the great temple. Each of these colossal figures is over 70 feet high. Members of the royal family are dwarfed by the giant image of Pharaoh. The reliefs on the outside walls show us something of the life of man 3,000 years ago. 2 deities of the Nile unite the lily and the papyrus to symbolize the union of...
So this cartouche here, I've just paused it here because this is one of the names of Ramesses in this cartouche. It reads Ra Usa Ma'at Setep En Ra. Okay, so Ra Usa Ma'at Setep En Ra, which is one of the names of Ramesses. The reason I raise this is because this cartouche, and this is going to be interesting considering what we're watching right now, is all over Europe. I bet you weren't expecting me to say that, were you? It's all over Europe. Every single obelisk in Europe, and they kind of make out like all the obelisks were gathered from various parts of Egypt, and all of the obelisks in Europe, you know, one in Britain, France, Germany, Vatican, they all have exactly the same inscription on them, and they all belong to Ramesses. And all of them have his various names, but this one featuring over and over again. Just an interesting side note that I thought was worth mentioning. There's, in my belief, I believe there's a link between Ramesses and Rome that modern Eurocentric history isn't telling us, but that's a whole other conspiracy theory that we're not going to go into right now. Just thought I'd mention that though. But have a look out for this cartouche next time you're visiting one of Europe's, or even in America, looking at the obelisks over there. Look out for this cartouche. It's a very easy one to spot. And remember what I said. Okay. Let's carry on.
The kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt. Apart from the figures of Ramesses' wife, Nefertari, and her favorite children, the temple facade has symbolic statues which represent the monarch's greatness and the respect he commanded among his enemies. The inscriptions relate the exploits of his reign.
And by the way, it's not random that I point out that cartouche, because I was actually shocked to find the other day, I stumbled along an article, and the article basically, the headline was along the lines of historian translates or deciphers obelisk in name the area, as though no one had ever taken the time to just translate what's written on the hieroglyphs. This person was getting these massive headlines, and it just goes on to prove that they've been putting these obelisks exist in all of these different parts of the world, spanning, you know, Europe and America. And I guess there's been a bit of a narrative following them, but it seems to me like maybe I noticed that all of these obelisks have the same inscription before the Egyptologists did. Because the narrative seems to have always been that, yes, they stole them from Egypt, but different parts of, you know, different colonists stole different obelisks from different places. Well, the fact that the obelisks all have the same inscription suggests that this might not be the case, and they might have found some other way into Europe than being stolen. Now, put that hat on as you watch this video.
Long rows of tethered Nubians on both sides of the entrance portal reveal the success of military campaigns. The great temple of Abu Simbel was designed to make dramatic use of sunlight, a supreme example of the astronomical knowledge of the ancient Egyptians and of the skill of their architects. Twice a year, in February and October, the sun's rays, shining through the narrow entranceway of the temple, through the giant pillared hall, 60 feet deep, penetrate to the inner sanctuary, which at other times is in darkness. The images of three gods, Amun, Ra-Harikti, and the pharaoh himself, are illuminated. Only the fourth deity, Ptah, god of the underworld, remains in the shadows. The figures in the pillared hall, each of them 25 feet high, also portray Pharaoh, but with the attributes of the god self
Let me just bring
are
those back.
illuminated.
Sorry, I want you to look at these images and look at these images of the pharaohs in their magnificent African glory. So please do look at this as it plays. Okay, this is such a privileged view to see the before and after. But let's have a look.
Only the fourth deity, Ptah, god of the underworld,
Look at that. Look at that.
remains in the shadows. The figures in the pillared hall, each of them 25 feet high, also portray Pharaoh, but with the attributes of the god Osiris. Colored wall reliefs glorify the king's deeds. In the year 1285 BC, in Syria, Ramesses II proved himself a great warrior by conquering the Hittites, who'd invaded his realm. These representations of the power and glory of the great pharaoh bear witness to the incomparable artistic skill.
One thing that I noticed more on this documentary than other occasions is that this Ramesses on the chariot with the bow seems to be flanked by something.
Proved himself a great warrior by conquering the Hittites, who'd invaded his realm.
Yeah, so he seems to be flanked by someone. This I would not say is an error. We see this habit, I've spoken about this before, of alternating colors. You can see the front one is dark brown, the other one is probably just it's faded considerably, as we know. But it's probably had the front one being black and the back one being brown, like a strong brown. And he looks like he's being flanked by someone. Don't know if there's been an explanation for that, maybe being flanked by a netter, a deity guiding him or something. But that isn't two, carvings of Ramesses. That's two individuals. That would at least be, if you're talking about the ancient Egyptian artistic protocol, that would be the rule that seemed to be there.
These representations of the power and glory of the great pharaoh bear witness to the incomparable artistic skill of that age. After conquering his enemies, Ramesses II is seen on other reliefs as a wise ruler receiving the thanks of his subjects, issuing decrees, and paying due tribute in the form of sacrifices and acts of veneration to the gods to whom he dedicated the temple. Today, more than 3,000 years later, the descendants of Pharaoh are confronted with problems which he would have had difficulty in understanding. The area in which this rapidly growing people can live and grow its food is limited to the narrow strip of fertile land on either bank of the Nile. Egypt's famous granary has now become too small. The construction of the Sad el Ali Dam meets a vital need of the people of the United Arab Republic. An enormous reservoir of the waters of the Nile will extend far south into the Sudan. It will be possible to irrigate much more land and greatly increase agricultural production. The vast
I hope you guys saw that destruction, and I want to play back so that everyone's clear on the reason they built this dam. So when you have these modern Egyptians saying, "Oh, my uncle, oh, my auntie, oh, our civilization," let's just play it back to see what the reason for the building of this dam was, in case you missed it.
live and grow its food is limited to the narrow strip of fertile land on either bank of the Nile. Egypt's famous granary has now become too small. The construction of the Sadil Ali Dam meets a vital need of the people of the United Arab Republic. An enormous reservoir of the waters of the Nile will extend far south into the Sudan. It will be possible to irrigate much more land and greatly increase agricultural production. The vast new supply of electric power will help new industries to grow. Of course, the building of the dam has had its drawbacks. Hundreds of thousands of people had to be resettled. Irreplaceable monuments of the golden age of Nubia would have been destroyed if something had not been done at the last moment to salvage them.
And do you see the way they say this as though it was an externality, as though it was a an asteroid attack? Oh, irreplaceable monuments in Nubia would have been destroyed unless a few great people didn't do something. How about none of Nubia would have been destroyed if not for the financial and the selfish needs of the quote unquote Arab population of Egypt, which is exactly what you just said there. Now, in fairness, I'm not even going to give Egypt too much of a hard rap here. I know for a fact this was orchestrated from Europe. I know that for an absolute fact. I know for an absolute fact this was orchestrated from Europe. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing when they decided to do this. It just infuriates me. It just infuriates me. And bear in mind, Nubia is a part of Kemet. Let me stress that again. Particularly this part as one. This is Tar Seti. So they're not flooding a foreign land, as heinous as that would be anyway. This is Kemet that they're flooding. This is the first nome that they are flooding. This is Tar Seti, Tar Pajet, whatever you want to call it. This is the first nome of Kemet being flooded because of its association with Africa. Sorry, just infuriating. I don't want to interrupt too much.
The threat to the monuments of Nubia alarmed the world. The United Arab Republic appealed to UNESCO for help.
Alarm the world, and United Arab Republic appealed to UNESCO for help. Once again, savior complex here. What do you mean? Oh, get your frigging power from elsewhere. How about that? Get your power from elsewhere. Yeah. Why do you have to build a hydroelectric dam in that specific place? There's guys, there's no, to me personally, you can have arguments back and forth. I've spoken with, I'm not going to say idiots about this, but people who I don't want to speak to again about this, who try to make the argument, oh, it was necessary, bro. It wasn't racism, man. Bro, shut up, man. Shut up and go away, and don't ever talk to me again, because I don't have time to speak to stupid people like you. If you think this was anything other than a deliberate destruction of Black African civilization, you're living in a delusion and a stupid world. I can't conversate with people like you. Honestly, that's just the fact of the matter, because they would never in a billion years do this to quote unquote white artifacts or European artifacts that they classify as belonging to Eurasians. They wouldn't do it to any of those artifacts. This is only acceptable and excusable behavior when it comes to Black artifacts. So if you're on that kind of boat where it's like, oh, they needed the hydroelectric power, go to Jesse Lee Peterson's channel or Jordan, whatever his stupid name is. Yeah? There's a good channel for you over there. There's plenty of really good channels that you can go to and you can believe that crap. This isn't the one for you. Yeah.
UNESCO launched an international campaign to save this heritage of the past, and more than 50 countries agreed to share the financial burden.
How about those 50 countries put their heads together and figure out a better way of getting electricity to Egypt, like solar panels or something that doesn't involve the flooding of priceless artifacts in one of the oldest civilizations in global history? Now, how about that? Did no one in UNESCO think that that was a priority? Funny how they all agreed that the dam needed to be built. So let's waste our time moving mountains as opposed to saving the entire civilization. No.
A race against time and the rising waters began. Many ways of rescuing the Abu Simbel temples were suggested. The plan ultimately agreed upon is this.
By the way, I'm glad you said this, RJ Mackenzie, because the native Black Egyptian people were dictated to, and they were promised a whole bunch of things at the outcome. These people who were essentially made homeless, who were made into, just moved off their land. Hundreds of thousands of native Black Egyptians were made, destitute as a result of their homelands. I mean, remember that video that I've got, if you haven't watched that video from 1925, I've got, where you see these people, the only people in Egypt who were still getting subsistence from the land, who were still not only observing but participating in the annual flooding of the plains of the Niles, and growing their crops, getting their livelihood in the old manner. Yeah, that's where they were. They were in the south. Those are the people who actually lived off the land, not the people in the north who grift off of Western tourism, but the people who actually live in the old way. Yeah, the ancient way. Thank you, Archie Mackenzie. You live in that proper way. They're the people who were affected by this, and their community has never recovered from this, and they've never been compensated, and they've never been any kind of beneficiary from what took place here. So yeah, it's infuriating. So let's carry on.
Construction of a cofferdam to protect the temples from flooding while building work is in progress. The facade to be banked up with sand to protect the statues of Ramesses. Shoring of the interior of the temple with steel scaffolding. Removal of the rock surrounding the temple until a wall thickness of 2.5 feet is reached. Dismantling the temples in blocks of 20 to 30 tons and removal to a safe storage area. Reassembly of the temples on a site 200 feet above the original location. Restoration of the landscape.
Now, guys, you just heard that plan. And I'm not going to lie to you, when I first heard this plan, obviously, I heard about the news, I thought cat. I'm not going to lie to you, I was like, no, you're stuff. Hello? How's that? Okay, that looks booming loud. Is that better? Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me now. Oh, there's a bit of a delay. Okay, someone said perfect. Okay, brilliant. All right, so when I first saw this, I called cap. Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not buying this. This is rubbish. There's no way I mean, you just saw that description of how they gotta fill it up with sand and then put the scaffolding up and then cut up the aisles like cut up a mountain. No one can do that. This is absolute nonsense. It can't be done. Well, keep watching. Wesker knows where this is going because me and him had this conversation probably over a year ago. But watch this.
In November 1963, the joint venture Abu Simbel, an international group of building contractors from 5 countries, received the contract for the removal of the temples. The Abu Simbel project has been a difficult assignment. The climate and especially the remoteness of the site have made things more difficult. Aswan, the nearest town, is 175 miles downstream. There are no roads along which building materials, machines, and food supplies can be transported. Consignments from Europe take 5 months to arrive. From Cairo, one must count on a month or 2. Yet, there is no time to lose. Even before living quarters can be set up for the crews, work has to start on the construction of the cofferdam. First of all, a steel piling wall is erected. The crest of the cofferdam must be 80 feet above the riverbed. In the beginning of November 1964, a critical stage was reached in the race against time and water. Because of heavy rain in Ethiopia, the river rose to a level about 6.5 feet below the crest of the dam. Work was already in full swing on either side of the cofferdam. Before dismantling of the rock figures could begin, the statues, as well as the entire facade, had to be covered with fine sand as a protection against falling stone. At the more sensitive spots, it is applied by hand. Excavation work with special machines starts from the top on the rock plateau that has been prepared. A guard over the facade prevents large rock fragments from striking the layer of sand. The rock material, removed from above the temples, is used for the construction of the dam. At the end of February 1965, the bulkhead is completed, and the facade of the temple is once again concealed beneath the sand as it was before its discovery. The inside can now be reached only through a steel pipe. The reinforcement of the interior is now almost complete. 240 tons of steel sections were needed for the shoring work.
So let me do a quick survey. It's been playing for a little bit there. Who's who's still calling Cap? Or exactly, in fact, let me do a little quick survey. How do people feel about where this video is heading in terms of like what you knew versus what the claim is versus how much evidence you think they're gonna have for the claim? I just want to get a kind of a feel from you guys. You guys think that what they're saying is possible? You reckon you're gonna be convinced by the end of the video? I just want to kind of like see how you feel about this. I want to see how you feel about this. It's quite interesting. I'll let it carry on playing in just a second. Another quick question I actually asked you guys is this as well, yeah. I don't. So Darth says he don't believe a damn thing they're claiming. Seems very conspiratorial. Okay, that's fair. We'll keep watching. Does anyone know what the kind of square footage of the flooded land is? The square footage of the flooded land. LP kickboxing misspelled cap. Well, you know, they could have used the same effort to come up with a better solution than flooding our priceless monuments. You know, the irony is, if you read back about this very event in history, all they do is pat themselves on the back. That's all they do. Pat themselves on the back. All you'll read is praise after praise after praise of, oh, look at the wonderful thing we did. We managed to save a handful of monuments, blah, 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 blah. If it wasn't for the brave efforts, like they didn't flood it in the first place. These people are literally insane. I can't stress it enough. They're insane. That's about right. Do people don't realize the landmass flooded, guys? It would shatter your mind. Do you know how large 2,300 square kilometers is? We're talking 200 million acres. 200 million acres, guys. I can't even get my head around that. So people think it's just like this little narrow stretch of the Nile. First of all, the Nile is a humongously wide river, but then the extent to which the land that they flood, and this was all very deliberate, because they knew they were dealing with flatlands. They knew exactly how much, you know, how they needed to build the dam in order to get rid of these monuments and get rid of these antiquities. It's shocking. It's shocking. We're talking about the size of a nation, and not a small nation either. It's shocking. It's shocking. Anyway, let's carry on.
So as not to damage the ornamentation on the walls and ceilings, the steel supports are padded with felt mats and plastic foil. All steel supports are numbered for reassembly of the temples in the same sequence. The really critical work starts with the removal of the rock above the temple. At first, the rock is attacked with stone soaring strands, and giant blocks are cut out. Jib saws are brought into use. For the men at the saws, this is only a kind of dress rehearsal. So long as they're cutting only the wall of rock around the temple, fine precision is not yet required, and they can work with broader cuts. At the sides, the rock...
So if you didn't catch this, at the moment, they're cutting up the mounting, okay, which is a feat that I did not even consider was a possibility. Okay, I didn't even figure that this was a possibility. But yes, they are cutting up a mountain. I kid you not.
Is broken off piece by piece. Pneumatic drills can be used only on the outer sections. The vibrations are constantly measured inside the temple. More and more of the rock material over the temples is removed. 2 derricks are already waiting to take away the sawn-out blocks. Two cavities in the massive rock face show where the temples are located. Now comes the most difficult part of the work. The finest cuts on the surfaces can be made only by hand. The rock is so brittle that contact with water would make it crumble. Each individual block must be carefully marked so that it can easily be assigned its right position when the monument is re-erected. There are 1,047 temple blocks and 7,700 blocks of other rock with an average weight of between 20 and 30 tons each. For the safe transport of the heavy blocks, special truss rods had to be made. The drill holes which accommodate the anchor trusses are filled with synthetic resin to withstand any strain possible during transport. The largest and heaviest blocks were those from the heads of Pharaoh's statues. Here, the engineers wanted to make as few cuts as possible. Before sawing starts, the cutting surfaces are protected with plastic foil.
Who feels away at this point? I just want to know who feels away, because I do slightly feel away, especially when it reaches this part and, you know, they're going to start cutting up the heads of these African monuments. It's like watching termites eat a wall away in my home. I feel that energy. I do. I feel that dark energy, sir. It is. I feel it's just, yeah, I feel away. It gets worse, by the way, but you know, let's carry on watching it anyway. But it does get worse. So watching this part for me was wild, because you know something's possible, but you don't believe that it's occurred until you see it. Do you know what I mean? And then when you see it and you understand, you know, all those vertical saw marks that you see sometimes, and you just think, oh, that must be where they had ancient brick lines and this, that, and the other. Here's one for you guys. The Sphinx has those vertical marks. But here's what's interesting. The Sphinx is a monolith. It's carved from a single piece of stone. So why does it have those marks running along its face, indicating a movement? Did anyone note that before? Yeah, the Sphinx clearly has these vertical cut lines or these horizontal cut lines running through it. And yeah, the question has to be why? Why does it have it? It's monolithic. You know, we're so used to seeing them, we kind of like start to think that it's just, oh, it's this corrosion, this, that, and the other. These guys are master movers of stone. In some world, or in some parts of the world, they call those people maçons.
When the faces of the figures were cut, work had to proceed continuously, day and night. If there'd been any interruption in the sawing, the soft rock, interspersed with hard seams, might have crumbled due to changes in tension.
They are literally defacing Ramesses. This is what you call defacing properties. It's not random destruction. This is, once again, acts of, some of you use the keyword vandalism. Seem to be, this is crazy. Let's have a look. Let's carry on.
And this is the moment that journalists and press photographers.
So let's just put that little fact on the screen there. Okay. 2,030 square miles, 5,250 square kilometers equals Luxembourg, Andorra, and Faroe Islands. Oy. And that's just Lake Nassau. That's 2/3 of the flood zone. The last third of the flood zone is Lake Nubia, that's in Sudan. So you can increase that by about 50%, which I think would give you around 3,000 square miles in total in terms of the flood zone. That is a that is something. That is absolutely something.
Have waited for all night. King Ramesses gives one last majestic look at the bare facade before the special low-load transport vehicle.
Quick question. I did my Ramesses reconstructions yesterday. Still look like the same person to you guys? Let me get your feedback. Does it feel like that the reconstruction that I did captured him? I want honest feedback there. I know there's a censored. I know you weren't feeling it because maybe it didn't look as much like you, and you look like Ramesses, you've said, which is fine. But I still like to get your feedback if you feel like what you're seeing her in terms of the statue was captured in my reconstruction, or at least partially so. Yeah.
Carries him to the storage place. The two storage sites are located on a plateau near the spot where the temples are to be re-erected. The position and number of each block is registered just as if it were a book in a library.
Well, while this is, let me just quickly jump in here because there's a really interesting discussion going on, probably ignited by myself when I mentioned about Ramesses' name being all over Europe. And there's a lot of different comments. This one by Darwin says, when you read Greek mythology, it ties in greatly with that of Kemet that came before. Yep. There's even a tale where the Greek gods seek refuge in Egypt that escape being destroyed in their own land. Do you know there's so much overlap and lies that were being told? On my live stream the other day, I had Brother George, who informed me that informed everybody who was there that the founder of Greece was Sesostris III or Senusret III, which was news to me. And then when I looked into it, it totally corroborates. Then he has the same name. In fact, the Amoraic translation of his name, Seson Chops, is exactly the same name as the founder of Greece, Cechops, if you just take out the son glyph in the middle, which obviously is we don't know how to pronounce the names or what order or what glyphs they would include or exclude sometimes. So it's very possible that his name would have been Sechos or Sechops, which would have been in line with other Aramaic. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't say that. Thanks very much, Gaza. Yeah, Aramaic. Yeah. So it's exactly the same name. So I was like, well, that's amazing. Because then when we fast forward, I'm now leaning towards the idea that the founder of Rome is Ramesses. That's where I'm leaning towards. A lot of research is leading me towards that. I'm not going to claim more than that until I do more research, but I think this is something they're trying to hide. I think the name Remesu, which is how it translates on the glyphs, or Ramesu. Okay, Remesu, which is translated in Rwandan or Kenya Rwandan. They have the name Rumeza, I believe, and Remus. Those names seem to all overlap really nicely. And if you know who Remus is, that's one of the founders of Rome. Now, that's all conspiracy at the moment, but you get a whole load of these not coincidences, but like these continuations, which show you which civilization or how a civilization seeded the other. One that jumped out on me the other day, which some of you might find really interesting, is Hercules. Okay, who knew that Hercules' name comes from southern Egypt, Upper Egypt? Okay, the name Hercules has same root as the word hieroglyphics. Okay, I'm gonna go on to it because Hercules' name comes from Heracles, and Heracles' names comes from Heracopolitan or Heracopolit, whatever it is, Heracopolitis or Heracopolitai. That's a ancient Egyptian, Upper Egyptian city. Okay, that's where Heracles' names come from. Okay? Or Hierocles was the earliest translation of that name. So the very name of one of the famous deities, or one of the famous demigods, I should say, is named after an Upper Egyptian city. So it's like these correspondences, they're not small. Obviously, we have the ones that are in the Black Athena book as well, such as Athena herself getting her name from a Saite deity called Nace or Nath. Okay, so the deity Nath, who was obviously an Old Kingdom ancestor, or Neat as she was worshipped, became Athena. Okay, they just switched the N and put it at the end. So Neith or Ethan became Athena for the Greeks. So there's loads and loads and loads of these links which show a seeding. And then we have the entire Argive dynasty of Greece, who quite tangibly trace their lineage back to Egypt. They're open about the fact that they came from Egypt. And this was accepted in Greek, it's accepted in classical history that the Argive dynasty were Egyptian. So there's these links. Hieracompolis, thank you very much for spelling that out there, Hitflix, for me. Okay, but that's where we get the name Heracles from. So yeah, there's a lot to be looked into. Now these things have been Egyptology and classical and classicists for the past 200 years have been stamping out the connections between ancient Egypt and ancient Greece and Rome. They've been stamping them out. Remember, that's the classic model. That was Martin Bernal's entire argument, was that there's a very clear seeding of those civilizations from Africa, a very, very clear seeding of those civilizations from Africa. And it was the job of racist anthropologists, just like they're trying to do right now with the DNA, it was their job to stamp out this very clear seeding of those civilizations and to propose this spontaneous, ingenious sprouting out of nothingness for Western civilization, and it's unsupported. So what I'm saying might sound like really wild conspiracy theories, but actually it's entirely logical. It's how civilizations are birthed, okay? Especially since they inherited their script, as we already know, in their writing system. They've inherited so much. Why would they just stop there? Wouldn't they inherit other things as well? That would be very, very logical. Quick shout out to Macy. Thank you very much. She says the veil has been lifted. So it's certainly lifting, isn't it? It's certainly lifting. Let's carry on watching this.
From his temporary resting place, the great pharaoh could look out on the round roofs of the houses built for 1,000 workers. He may even cast a longing gaze over the swimming pool, whose waters must seem like a mirage in the desert. The Nile has now risen above the base of the original site, but the cofferdam has stood the test. The monuments are being saved in time. As the days pass, the hand sawing of the block.
You know what? I'm feeling spicy today, so I'm going to throw this one out to you. So Wesker's put this comment. There's a possibility there are two versions of Heracles, the original Egyptian legend and the revived Greek version. You know what's also interesting? I think Narmer was from Hierapolis. That was actually his hometown. If that be the case, remember how the ancient Egyptians, all of their deities or netters were actual people who lived. They didn't really create legends too much. It was more about an actual living legend. So is there a possibility that maybe that was the legend of one of those rulers like Narmer? And then that story was converted down the line. Obviously, that's a total speculation, but this is how ancient Egyptian myth making, for want of a better word, worked. It would be based on actual ancestors who would then become a part of the ancient Egyptian pantheon, for want of the better word. Why did I put Wesker's comment up? Because we were having a conversation the other day, okay, and he said, what's the conversation we're having? I've forgotten. Sorry, I'm gonna let the video play. Maybe it's for the better. I completely forgot my train of thought. I had a really good point, and it was really, really gonna be quite a strong one. And I've forgotten it now. Maybe it'll come back to me as it plays.
And their removal to the storage site becomes routine. Each block is transported without jolting, maintained in its original position. This ensures against breakage as a result of a sudden change in stress. The work advances farther and farther into the interior of the temple. Every day, new artistic masterpieces are brought for the first time into broad daylight. The divine pharaoh seems somewhat fearful as he looks out on this new technological age, an age which saves him from crumbling with the help of injections of synthetic resin. The supporting pillars are dismantled by means of very fine cuts. Here, work is done with extreme care. These surfaces, which have been exposed to the elements, are particularly brittle. Now, even if the water were to overflow the cofferdam ahead of schedule, the most it could do would be to cover the leg stumps of Pharaoh. The last of the wall reliefs is ready for transport. By coincidence, it bears the motto under which the salvage project is being carried out: the union of the Upper and Lower Nile as the symbol of wealth and fertility. While the dismantling work proceeds, preparations for re-erection are made on the plateau. Large-scale leveling operations have been completed.
Just a nice little comment there from Sensei. He says, if Ramesses II wasn't black, why is he mistaken for Memnon, a black king? Haha. I mean, it's it's one of these are these logical consistencies that we get so much, where people are clearly described and related to, Memnon is king of Ethiopia, like you don't get blacker than that unless you want to, essentially king of Central Africa. Yeah. You don't get blacker than that unless you're dealing with Eurocentrism, who will find a way to argue, oh, he was called that because X, Y, Z. these are the kind of logical arguments that we have a billion of, a billion of, and they just, they it's almost like we're gaslit into believing that these correspondences and these consistencies and these confluences don't mean anything. It's like they mean everything. So exactly what you just said there is very, very logical. And it's also, I think this also highlights that very, very close relationship that Kemet and Africa had. Kemet and Ethiopia were always spoken about hand in hand. They were almost referred to as a single entity by many of these historians. They would always speak of Kemet in Ethiopia and Kemet as the younger brother of Ethiopia, So it's just like, yeah, it's none of this is surprising, put it that way. Agamemnon related to Memnon, it sounds like it. I mean, that would be logical, wouldn't it? By the way, a lot of the you can do quite a bit of try deconstructing a lot of Greek terms, which I do every now and then. That's how I was able to find Sesostris' name linked to Cetrops, the founder of thing. I had to look in my Manetho, my book of Kings list, to find different translations, and I found one that exactly corresponded. But an easy way to do it is just to drop the additional S that the Greeks would normally add onto the end. Drop that additional S and then look for correspondences in Kemetic word structure. So once you kind of get familiar with hieroglyphs, you'll realize how a lot of Kemetic words are structured, and you're able to essentially find the relationship between what becomes the Greek term and what the original ancient Kemetic term may have looked like. So it's something that you kind of can do yourself a lot of the time. And I feel this is hard to watch, Honorine. Yeah, it's hard to watch. But we're near the end now, so let's carry on.
The axis has been precisely calculated to produce the same biannual miracle of sunlight. The reconstruction of the temple interior can begin. The same steel shoring sections which served for dismantling are used. The reassembly of the sections of the first facade reveals the precision with which the temple had been dismantled. The powerful blocks are easily put together. The original site has now been completely abandoned. The Nile...
Look, I'm not gonna lie, this was the part that broke me, guys. Did you see that view? Let me play it back. This is the part that broke me.
The powerful blocks are easily put together.
This is the part that broke me. I was like, if this isn't some 1970s CGI, which you can never put past them, by the way, this is the part that broke me. I was like, freaking wow. This thoroughly broke me when I saw this. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. They cut the temple out of the mountain, man. And obviously, look, people will be like, oh, well, it's a good thing, this, that, and the other. Yes, it's good they saved the single temple. Well, that's not what we're talking about. Okay? We're upset that they had to. We're upset that they had to change thousands of years of heritage, culture, and perfect ecological balance for their wickedness. Because that's what it is. Let's not be around the bush. What they did to this part of Kemet and Kush was wicked. Absolutely wicked.
The original site has now been completely abandoned. The Nile covers it at last. But in their new location, the monuments come to life again as each block is restored to its rightful place in turn.
Are you looking at this, guys? They cut up a mountain and then just put it back together like a jigsaw puzzle. Like I said, as heartbreaking and infuriating as this is, it's also very harrowing for me, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, you can say what you want, but these dudes be mad resourceful. These dudes are really resourceful. They're really good at moving stone monuments. Let me say that again for the people in the back. They're really good at moving stone monuments.
The final phase of reconstructing the 22-meter-high statues begins.
And I know there's a lot of people. I think there has been mild tampering to Ramesses' face, but this is Ramesses' face. I'm telling you, as someone who has, I've seen too many versions of Ramesses' face to say this doesn't look like Ramesses. That is Ramesses consistently. He really is depicted this way in so many monuments. That's his face. That's that nose bridge. Yeah, we're talking about that yesterday. That strong nose bridge, not a hook nose, just a strong nose bridge, a broad base. This is Ramesses. This is the real face of Ramesses. And I showed you even that image that I showed you yesterday. Or they've got these lions next to Cleopatra's needle, and I took a picture of them. They've got the perfect face of Ramesses, untampered, just like this one, which now I'm thinking came from somewhere else. But I'm not going to go into all of that right now.
Pharaoh lives again. An exciting moment. Now comes the final test. Whether the statues will look the same as before. The great engineering achievement of relocating the stone temple is not the end of the work, however. The unique...
How many of you remember the version of Ramesses that they had in Crystal Palace? How many of you remember that? Let me see if I can pull that up. Because that one, they also preserved his features. I don't know if you remember, I showed you that, I think back in the Moors video. And the question is, you know, if that, one second, if that wasn't what Ramesses looked like, why would they have built these gigantic African monuments and have them in the middle of London? RJ remembers. Let me show you these quickly. For those of you who haven't seen these, this will be a nice little, this is going to knock you off your seat. It's going to knock you right off your seat. So this is Crystal. This has been destroyed, by the way. Now monuments have been destroyed along with it, but this is Crystal Palace, allegedly in England. Allegedly, I say. Allegedly, England. These are two statues of Ramesses. Look at the features, man. Doesn't your mind boggle? This was allegedly. I'm gonna keep saying allegedly because we just don't know where these people got stuff from and where they transported stuff to. But these statues of Ramesses were in England. These full color as well, full color, not faded like the ones we see. Ain't that something? Little side quest. Let's carry on.
Rocky landscape around the temple must also be reconstructed according to the original. A 12,000 square meter area must be re-landscaped. Cement domes are first constructed above the temple locations for placing the stones.
This part's gonna blow your mind, by the way, guys. Because they're gonna rebuild the mountain now.
The dome above the large temple has a spread of over 60 meters. The individual cement segments are 1.8 meters thick at the apex and 2.3 meters at the base. Some 10,000 cubic meters of cement are involved in this giant construction. The height of the cover above the apex is more than 10 meters and will have to support more than 20 tons of stone per square meter. The entire stone covering of the surface is estimated to be 350,000 cubic meters. The dome above the small temple has a spread of 25 meters, requiring more than 3,000 cubic meters of concrete.
Let me address this comment quickly. I agree. If you're talking about the Ramesses statues that I showed you, I'm not claiming that they're original, by the way. I don't think they're original. I think the point being is that they built replicas and they preserved the features of Ramesses and also restored the color, and they colored them the color of black people. So they knew what color the original statues of Ramesses were when they made those gigantic monuments that used to be seated in the Crystal Palace. They knew what time it was. So these were created at a time before the racial controversy and before the controversy around even the features. They knew what ancient Egyptians looked like. They knew what Ramesses looked like. There wasn't something that there was any conflict with. That's, I think, the point that was being made there. But yeah, thank you for pointing out. Yes, I agree. They're not original, and I'm not going to try and claim that they're actual Egyptian monuments. That wasn't the point. Yeah, so I'm with you there.
The last of the blocks, comprising the facade of the smaller temple, are set in place. More than 7,700 stone blocks must be rearranged between the temples. Now
guys, the scale of this is something else, isn't it? The scale of this is something else. It's hard to refute when you've got the footage of it gradually being constructed. Because I'm very much not, yeah, I am very much a conspiracy theorist in that if you don't give me enough evidence, I'm going to tell you that you're lying straight up. I'm going to be like, well, I don't believe that. You just show me nothing, and then you've shown me it constructed, and then you said that you constructed it and it took you this long. I will refute that all day long. What I won't refute is systematic construction of something from nothing. We can see this being put up. So it's at the point now where I go, well, this has happened. So now we have to answer the question, if they're capable of this, what the hell are they also capable of? Because this is the relocation of a humongous structure at a almost unfathomable scale. So you know, look up Greek revival architecture if you want to have a look at some stuff that's been taken from around the world and ended up in Europe. I'll put that out there, then I'll keep it moving.
Finishing touches. Restoration work on the larger temple is necessary.
The faces look well preserved. I haven't been to Abu Simbel. Someone could tell me if they still look as well preserved as they do here. It'd be interesting to know. I think I've seen recent pictures and they look like they've kept much of their form. They do some repair work on them actually between now and the end of the video.
The facade is made crack and weatherproof. It must withstand many more centuries. When the seams have been closed, it will no longer be evident that the temple was once sawed into individual blocks. Thus, the temples of Abu Simbel will again greet the rising sun. They will bear witness both to the supreme genius of an ancient civilization and to the miraculous skill of modern technology. They will also bear witness to the determination of the world as a whole to preserve the best of the past while building the future, and to apply international cooperation for the achievement of these great purposes.
There you go. Did that blow your mind, guys? Because that blew my mind when I saw that. Wesco, remember, I actually went watching this video to disprove. My intention was to disprove the idea that the temple had been moved. I was like, these people are straight capping. They ain't moved nothing. And then I watched this video and I was like, damn, they moved the hell out of that shit. Excuse my French. So, I was like, man, they moved the heck out of that. Wow. So yeah, I hope that was useful for you guys. I thought, yeah, might as well actually just show you it, because I mentioned it yesterday, and I thought actually it's probably a good deal of you who haven't seen this video, and I think it's good for us to become just armed with this knowledge. Just be armed with it. Yeah. But there you go. I'm not gonna add much more than that. I don't have a huge amount to add. Yeah, I'm just gonna I'll be keeping an eye on the comments as well. So I think we're good. Sorry for those of you who have just jumped in and they're like, yo, just come, what's going on? You can't just come to the end. We've watched the video back. We had a little bit of a chat in between. We fried some brain cells from RJ. We talked a little bit about the ancient Egyptian or the ancient Kemetic seeding of Rome and Greece in kind of like side conversations. And we scared ourselves looking at the capabilities of Europeans, I'm going to say, for want of a better word, who have the ability to move large buildings from one location to the other, it seems. And that's what I said to you guys, if they're capable, what I want you to get from this is now you see their ability and capability of moving buildings. Think to yourself why there was such a flowering of architectural and out of place architectural, by the way, architectural innovation during the period of imperialism and colonization. Buildings just popped up all over Europe in architectural styles that were foreign to Europe up until that point. And ask yourself, how that happened. Okay, ask yourself how that happened. Think about the railway network they built across Africa that really didn't serve any other purpose than to cart large scale items across the continent, and ask why they built those. You know, if they were just getting minerals from Africa, they didn't need railways to transport minerals. You don't need railways to transport them. You need railways to transport very large things. So yeah, have a mull that over, see where it gets you, see where you come out of the other side, and share with me your sleepless nights on another live stream. Guys, I've really enjoyed reading the chat whilst watching this video. That's probably why I let it play through, because half the time it was playing, I was just reading what you guys were saying. But I think on that monumental note, 1.5 hours have been breached and we've had some great conversations. And yeah, we're going to call it a day. Great Zimbabwe. Yep. Stones break up, they have a crumbly structure. Well, you need to look at Mutapa before Great Zimbabwe if you want to see some really, well, if you want to read about really substantial structures and perhaps even find images of them that suddenly disappeared. Okay. Moorish architecture all over Africa disappeared suddenly. All right. So anyway, I've said too much. You guys have a fantastic evening. Thank you very much for joining me. Appreciate you all. Thank you, Tanya V. Thank you, RJ, and everyone else in the chat. I'm not even going to risk reading out all the names of the people who have come today. Let me give a big shout out to Macy and Dregger for your donations as well. And I'm going to keep it pushing. Take care, guys. Have a good evening, and I'll potentially see you tomorrow. Peace.